In our second episode, we stopped with the question relating to 1% additional duty on IGST, which is non-batable and is very similar to the present CST label. Let us go for the official version. Let us hear Mr. Upendra Gupta for the official perspective on the issue which has evidently hurt the industry where it pains the most.
Most of the design related issues have already been finalized, and I am sure that the remaining activities would also be completed so that we achieve the timeline. The committee to draft model GST law and its 3 subcommittees are working on the drafting of model GST law. The committee and the subcommittee has been constituted by the empowered committee. Similarly, on the place of supply rules, a committee was constituted by the empowered committee to examine the issues relating to place of supply rules. The said committee has submitted its report. The report is under consideration of the competent authority. As far as placing of these rules in public domain is concerned, once these rules are approved by the competent authority, the same would be put in public domain to invite their input and comments thereon and further improvement of those rules, both relating to GST law as well as relating to place of supply rules. The empowered committee has constituted a committee on business processes. That committee is examining the issues relating to registration, returns, refunds and other related issues. The discussion in that committee are at advanced stage. So, we are hopeful that the issues relating to business processes also will get finalized soon. There is a proposal that there would be a common application for registration, there would be a common return. So, therefore, the taxpayers will not be required to file 2 registration applications or 2 returns. One return would be sufficient, and that return would be sufficient in the sense that it will contain the information relating to the central GST, the state GST as well as IGST, and then the respective parts would be examined by the center or the state administration. As far as audit is concerned, the discussion is on and a administrative mechanism may be reached, but it is only at discussion stage. Let me be very clear. As you might have seen that the Constitution Amendment Bill, which was introduced in December last year, provides for levy of 1% additional tax for a period not exceeding 2 years. The said tax is non-vatable and it is a central levy, but the amount would be retained by the originating state. So, the buying dealer will not get the input tax credit of the additional tax so paid by him, whereas he is eligible for the input tax credit of the IGST paid by him on interstate supplies. Please keep in mind that this additional tax is only on interstate supply of goods. It is not on intrastate supply. It is limited only to interstate supply of goods, only goods and not the services.
Okay, so let's go back to Mr. Sridhar. Mr. Sridhar, you have just heard Mr. Upendra Gupta. He is giving the official version of 1% levy with the Honorable Finance Minister announced that day, and the issue of stock transfer, of course, on which there is no duty at present. But this is going to be an additional burden in the industry, and it is non-batable. So, you would like to add some point on that?
If I look at what you have just shown us, and I have taken into consideration what Mr. Majumder said, it looks like the intention is not there to tax it. That's the way the reading comes after seeing the view of the television clipping also. But the larger issue would be concluded only when, as Bipin rightly said, it is shown as an exempted transaction. That is as far as Mr. Gupta is concerned. Now, there is one more point that he had raised with regard to he's talked about the administrative procedures, the filing of returns. There's one point that even Bipin did not address. We would like to see 2 main things. At the first level, we want a national appellate authority comprising of appeal commissioners. You would reflect this has got some commonness to what Dr. Shom said also in the last reports
the
also.
report,
A National Appellate Authority for Indirect Taxes concerning the CGST and the SGST. Is it possible? That's the first consideration that needs to be given. The second thing is the tribunals that work in the country. We have two sets of tribunals. The Central Excise and the Customs side and the Service Tax Appellate Tribunal and the State Appellate Tribunals which functions for VAT. If you combine them and create a national GST tribunal with the CGST and an SGST side, we are creating harmony. We are creating a single view. You are not creating multiplicity of views. People rushing to the high courts on rates. You are cutting down on litigation. So this has not been mentioned in the clipping. So we only hope that this would come out very soon.
Is it possible? Do you really I'll tell you. Yes. I will go 2 steps further from what Mr. Sridhar said. I tell you, I've been writing in TIOL also on that. Right. That I would like that after this adjudication comes when there is a show cause notice for either procedural default or actual evasion and whatever. I would like that, so far as the show cause notice issuance is concerned, there will be 2 authorities. But once the show cause notice is issued, there should be one bench for adjudication. There one representative from center, one representative from state, and there may be a provision for difference of opinion give to a third member.
I would want to differ here, sir. Can I stop you here? If there are 2 show cause notices,
show cause notice has to be there too, because there are 2 authorities.
No, sir. So the point is, that's where the problem is. If people continue to issue show cause notices on different interpretations of the law, my problem starts there for the industry.
That's a different issue.
Because if the center stops the show cause, so if there is somebody who has decided it, whether that is binding on me, and if the state officer continues to assess me or raises show cause notice on a different level as compared to what the central has done, the whole purpose is lost. If center, when he is issuing the show cause, he says that no, it is my interpretation that no show cause should be issued. State feels, no, the show cause should be issued. Where do I go?
That's a different thing. So that's why I don't want that.
This is going to happen, sir.
No, it will be, that's why the law would be so, there would be a provision, because either center or state, because it cannot be a situation that on a same event, there are 2 treatments. CGST authority will issue show cause notice, SGST will not issue. It cannot happen like that. So it will have to happen that both will do it or both will not do it. So if they do it, then at least the adjudication should be on the common bench, and after adjudication, even the first stage of appeal also should be a common bench.
And if then, Mr. Majumder, if it happens, there will be the happiest day. When you are going 2 steps ahead of us.
Yes,
I mean, we are just looking at the first step, and if before 2016 we are able to set up so much, then we won't have people running to the high courts. And there is one more point, Mr. Shailendra. Today, if you really look at why our high courts are burdened in the 2010s and the 11s and the 12s, is both in indirect tax and in direct taxes. You have people rushing in because there are multiplicity of views.
Yes.
The fact of jurisdiction is all secondary, because multiplicity of views across the national jurisdiction. So people running to the respective courts to understand that I can't pay hundreds of crores on this kind of an interpretation. So if that can be arrested with the way Mr. Majumder has said, we are willing.
I tell you,
industry is in.
I tell you, there's for this purpose what the issue raised by Bipin as well as Mr. Sridhar. I tell you, if you read the a wonderful document called the report of the Standing Committee of Finance led by Mr. Yashwant Sinha in the previous parliament, when they went into the 115th Constitution Amendment Bill, the committee has made a recommendation there has to be a GST monitoring of implementation, that what are the drawbacks, and they should guide and they bring it to the notice of the GST Council if those sort of things happen. What Bipin has rightly said, these things might happen. So this is very important to have a monitoring. And I'm not only referring to this document, I'll refer to another document. You know, CAG had made an audit in 2010 and January or so on VAT implementation. And then there is a last chapter, Lessons for GST. And it's a wonderful, there is a small document. It gives what are the faults they found, system fault in the VAT implementation. And then they said that this should not happen in GST. And one of the recommendations is that in VAT implementation, there was no monitoring mechanism. There should be a strong monitoring mechanism in GST. And same thing has been repeated by the standing committee. Right. So if we have a very strong GST implementation monitoring committee, when I say strong, I mean that it should be headed at a appropriately high level so that their words will be listened to by the center authorities and the state authorities. Then I think some of these fears which we are having, that implementation, well, of course, GST will bring in so many simplification, but that doesn't mean that we'll stop at only one level.
I have only one more point on this. See, we have national data of litigation ever since 1950 to 2015. Let us assume. Now, we have written an article on this issue. 65 years we have got litigation database. Now you're going to have fresh set of National Revenue Service officers who will come in after GST. Must you not guide them? Must you not guide the industry of what is relevant out of this jurisprudence of the last 60 years for the new ongoing regime? Absolutely. If the empowered committee is serious enough to understand that the fact that this jurisprudence is relevant, then out of this what is relevant for the future regime? We need to carry this forward and help the next generation that are going to come in as qualified accountants, as qualified lawyers, that how much somebody should do a research. There should be a national research database sitting with the GST Council, and they in turn will have to work for about 2-3 years to submit a report, and that report should be available on public domain. Otherwise, will we be floating around?
If we don't do research, we will certainly have the unanimity over one issue. The certain ills which are afflicting our existing adjudication system
must go.
All kinds of frivolous appeals, all kinds of cases where the revenue has absolutely no merit in the case, but the cases go on for a variety of reasons. So maybe this could be, the GST could be the golden opportunity for Government of India also to create a new cadre of adjudicators. Let them focus only on adjudication and forget about the department has nothing to do with the adjudication. Let them do investigation, let them issue so-called notices. Adjudication to be handled by separately by somebody who will take care of the center and the state adjudication.
Well, Shailendra, it was tried in a different way, in a smaller way by the Department Central Board of Excise and Customs when we had commissioner adjudication in very number of commissionerates. But somehow it didn't work. And it didn't work. Rather, the traded industry were not very happy about it. So we went. Why, again, maybe I don't know. Maybe the monitoring was not correct or so. So again, we came back to that thing.
But today, sir, I find that my interaction with a lot of adjudicators, either direct tax side or indirect tax side, and given again, so this is very interesting thing which I would like to bring it to the notice of the distinguished guest. The Vigilance Department has issued a circular saying that if a decision is being given against the revenue, it has to be investigated. So all the adjudicators are escaped.
No, that is no longer there. It was there in the about I think 8 years back or so.
I'm talking about the recent ones.
No, not in CBSE, I tell you. CBSE, it cannot be. Because Vigilance Directorate had given a circular that wherever the cases are dropped, then a copy would be sent to the Vigilance Directorate. But that was taken back.
So this has been revived. I was told it has been revived.
I am not aware, but I am
so now the larger question is what Mr. Sridhar is pointing out, that is where we need to put our heads together and come up with a new mechanism, perhaps, which will not encourage more litigation.
But to a student of tax, there are still some doubts, sir, even on the Constitution Amendment Bill also. We have thought about one more angle to this. Now, what is going to be the role of the Finance Commission? What will be, if the GST Council will decide the entire mechanism? What will be the appropriation role of the Finance Commission? There is an article sitting inside the Constitution of India. It's the Constitution that any chartered accountant reads when he qualifies. What is going to happen to that? There is a specific first sub-article on what is the roles and responsibilities of the Finance Commission. What will be their role? How will it get reconciled? And will there be a need at all? And like this, there are a few dimensions which is inside the play of the GST, which we feel is really relevant. Now, today, if you really look at the services regime, I want to carry on from where Bipin left. Today, our input regime is fully integrated. On the services regime, more than the point of service, the rules, first we need to integrate the services. Right. Today, let us assume every product that we think of, this mug that we think of, cannot be produced. Let's say there's a big product manufacturer producing mugs. He may have limitations on capacity. He outsources his capacity to certain other small scale manufacturers. He buys them back. He gives the goods or the inputs required, and he takes them back, and he in turn sells them. Now today, to the extent of the mugs, on the inputs, there's a free flow of credits. Services is totally lost in contract packing. Who handles that? What is the role of GST Council with regard to contract packing? And what about purchase of finished goods? When there is ultimately one brand owner who has just come into India. India is open country today. He comes into India, he needs 10 years or 7 years to understand the market. Let's say 5 years he needs. Then the 5 years he buys goods from outsiders. Today when you trade goods, you don't get credit. Absolutely. Because there's an amendment. Now the question is, where are these portions of integration lost? Who's looking at them? Then we have not touched upon critical issues that concerns the industry. As of today, before the sunset date of 1/4/2016 comes into play, there are at least minimum 50 to 75,000 crores of incentives locked in terms of unexpired period. I am sure my number is wrong. I am just saying it for the sake of saying, so that the point gets the real relevance. Absolutely. But then what about the right number? If you club both the center and the states unexpired, I am using the right word, unexpired discount or unexpired exemptions. Now, who handles them? And who gives the commitment on the balance unexpired period? And whether it is a drop dead, then as of 1/4/2016, I am left like an orphan, or there is going to be a sunset period.